Hi there, I'm Allison from Move Smart Movement, and today somebody asked a really great question about whether what my son refers to as a sloth squat is a safe and practical movement for those of us with osteoporosis. So that would be where you are fully down in a squat, totally relaxed. This is not a working squat, this is a getting stuff done squat. And as you can see, first of all, I have super tight calves and ankles, so I can't do this with my heels on the ground, but it leads to quite a lot of flexion in the lower back and the lumbar spine. Do we always need to avoid flexion in our lumbar spines? No, we don't, but under certain circumstances, we want to limit our exposure. So what are those circumstances? We want to limit flexion that is sustained, so holding it for a long time. Rapid, doesn't apply in this case. Forceful, doesn't apply in this case. End range, probably not, but maybe depending on your mobility. And weighted. And in this case, it is weighted with our body weight. And it depends on what you're doing in that squat. It may also be what's called a compound movement, which is where we combine flexion with another movement. In this case, probably rotation. So why do we want to limit those motions? Because they put potentially excessive pressure on in this case, the fronts of our vertebrae, which can potentially be a contributing factor to fractures if we overload those bones over time, right? And so we're not trying to eliminate those motions, but we're trying to limit them so that we decrease the amount of time our bones spend under that kind of load over time. So I believe in this case, the question was about gardening. And can I be in a, kind of in that squat position for gardening? And this is where the compound, so staying for a long time potentially, so sustained could come into play, but also a compound motion. So if you are flexing, so here's my plant over here, I'm facing this way, but I'm trying to be practical. So I'm also turning to do stuff over here. Now I'm both flexing and rotating at the same time, which is not an ideal situation for those of us with osteoporosis. One of the comments that was made is this doesn't hurt when I do this motion or this position. And the thing about osteoporosis, of course, is that the condition itself doesn't hurt as long as you don't have fractures. So positions are less about what is comfortable and uncomfortable. Unfortunately, you can't use your level of comfort as a benchmark for whether a position is appropriate for us or not, because you don't really feel any pain, unless something goes sideways, and we want to avoid having things go sideways. So if you have lots of mobility in your hips and your ankles, you can maintain that position with a very minimal amount of spinal flexion, you're good to go. But that's not the case for most of us. So how would we do our gardening? So there are a couple of different ways to go. One is that you get a footstool, low footstool, or something underneath your pelvis to support you so that you're in a squatting position and you can get things done, but with this untucked spine or less tucked spine, and you're not so weighted because your body is being held onto an object. We want to also avoid really rolling your whole body forward. So you want to make sure that you're working close to your objects, your plants, your housekeeping, your whatever you're doing, so that you don't need to increase the amount of flexion in your spine. You also, and this does slow things down, you want to be facing the thing that you're working on rather than that squatting, flexing, and rotating combination. So you just have to keep moving your footstool along the row as you go. The other thing that you can do is support from below. This is often a really good strategy for me because I have such tight feet, calves, and ankles. So lifting my heels up, you can see, allows my heels to be supported, but I'm no longer in that flexed position for my back. I've got this nice long spine. So this is great for us. Long spine, lots of hip mobility, get things done right in front of you, take your heel support, move it along the line, and work with the next plant along. But what can you do to prepare for this shape? We can try and limit that amount of restriction in your calves and ankles, which will give you better access to an untucked squat by doing some calf release, where you're not looking for a big intense calf sensation, calf stretching, where you're looking for more sense of that length through the back of your calf work. Lift and lower your heels, trying to stay as vertical as you can. Getting that contraction into your calves warms things up, gets the muscles a little juicier, and allows you for a little bit more space to get into your squat. And hip mobility. So maybe doing some hip circles, maybe doing some active hip hinging, where you're really working on those muscles along the backs of your legs and your hips. Coming back up, again, contracting the muscles and working them in their lengthened position then makes coming down to a squat much easier to do without coming into that untucked back or coming into that tucked back position, which puts the excessive amount of pressure on your spine. So off you go. Have a great day. Questions? Pop them in down below. See you next time.